My ex invited me to his engagement party to humiliate me in front of high society. What he didn't know, his family's failing luxury brand had been begging my company for a partnership for months. They were about to meet their potential savior. They just didn't know she was the nobody their son dumped. When I walked through those doors, 7 months pregnant and holding all the cards, his entire world collapsed. If you love stories where karma comes with receipts and designer heels, hit that like button and subscribe, because this revenge was served ice cold with a side of irony. This is about the moment I realized that being hidden wasn't about my worth. It was about his fear. So let's dive in. My name is Lotus, and 2 years ago, I was someone's secret. Not the fun kind of secret, not the we're keeping things private kind of secret, but the kind where you realize you're being hidden because someone is ashamed of you. His name was Graham, and when I met him, I thought he was everything I'd been looking for. Sophisticated, well-spoken, from one of those families where everyone's name is on buildings and country club memberships get passed down through generations. I was a fragrance chemist working 16-hour days in a tiny laboratory, trying to build my own perfume company from absolutely nothing. He seemed fascinated by my work, by my passion, by the way I could identify 100 different scent notes blindfolded. We met at a hotel bar where I was celebrating closing my first major contract. He bought me a drink, asked about the papers spread across my table, and actually listened when I explained the chemistry behind fragrance composition. That night turned into breakfast the next morning, which turned into seeing each other almost every day. Within weeks, we were in a relationship. Or at least, I thought we were. Graham would come to my small apartment in the city, we'd order takeout and watch movies, and everything felt intimate and real. But I never saw his world. Not once. Every time I suggested meeting his family, he'd get this uncomfortable look and say his parents were traditional about him dating before 30. He said they had expectations, that they were old-fashioned, that he needed to wait for the right time. I'm a black woman, and he came from old money, the kind that still has portraits of Confederate ancestors in the hallway, so I understood what traditional really meant. I told myself it didn't matter, that eventually love would win, that I just needed to be patient, so I waited, and waited. 2 years I waited while he kept me tucked away like something he was ashamed to claim. I never appeared on his social media. I never met his friends. When he had business dinners or family events, he went alone. He'd say, "It's boring anyway, you wouldn't enjoy it," or, "It's just business, nothing fun." I tried to be understanding. I was building a company, working constantly, so I convinced myself I didn't have time for those events anyway. But deep down, I knew. I knew I was being hidden. I just didn't want to admit it, because admitting it meant facing a truth I wasn't ready for. Then one day, he just disappeared. Stopped answering my calls, stopped responding to texts. I went to his apartment, and the doorman told me Mr. Ashworth had requested I be removed from the visitor list. Mr. Ashworth. That's when I realized I didn't even know his last name. 2 years together, and I'd never known his full name, because he'd never told me. He'd always just been Graham. 3 days later, a lawyer's letter arrived at my apartment. Very formal, very cold, requesting that I refrain from all future contact with Graham Ashworth. Like I was a stalker. Like I was some obsessed stranger, instead of someone who'd spent 2 years loving him. 1 week after that letter, I saw the engagement announcement. Graham Ashworth, heir to the Ashworth luxury goods empire, engaged to Philippa Crane Matthews, daughter of the Crane Matthews banking dynasty. The photos were everywhere. Society pages, luxury magazines, all these pictures of them at charity galas and yacht parties, places I'd never known he frequented. His family threw this massive celebration that got covered like a royal wedding. His mother was quoted in the paper saying, "Finally, Graham has found someone suitable." That word, suitable, cut deeper than anything else. I'd never been suitable. I'd never even been given the chance. I spent 2 weeks in bed, barely functioning. My business partner, Orlando Mercier, basically ran the company solo while I fell apart. Orlando was this brilliant investor who'd believed in my perfume company when no one else would. He'd put up the initial capital 18 months earlier, and he'd been the most supportive professional partner I could have asked for. When I finally dragged myself back to the lab, he didn't ask questions. He just handed me a cup of coffee and said, "Channel it into the work." So I did. I threw every ounce of pain into creating a new signature scent. Something bold and unapologetic. Something that announced its presence without asking permission. I called it Noir Essence, and it was unlike anything else on the market. Dark, complex, with notes of oud and black orchid, and something that felt almost dangerously confident. I wasn't trying to make something people would like. I was making something people would remember. Orlando sent samples to a few key clients, and within 2 weeks, we had 3 celebrities wearing it publicly. Within a month, it went viral. Within 3 months, we couldn't manufacture it fast enough. The company exploded. Suddenly, we were getting calls from major department stores, luxury retailers, exclusive boutiques all over the world. We went from my tiny lab to a proper facility with a full team. I hired perfumers I'd admired for years, built a production line, and started developing an entire collection. Orlando handled the business side with this quiet efficiency that made everything seem effortless. We'd work late into the night, me at the lab table testing formulas, him at his laptop negotiating contracts. Somewhere in those long nights, I started noticing things about him I'd been too heartbroken to see before. The way he always brought me dinner when I forgot to eat. The way he listened to me talk about scent profiles like it was the most interesting thing in the world. The way he never once made me feel like I needed to be anything other than exactly who I was. 6 months after the breakup, Orlando walked into my office with a peculiar expression. He had a business proposal in his hands, and he looked almost amused. "We got an interesting offer," he said, sliding the papers across my desk. "Ashworth and Company wants to partner with us. Their luxury brand is struggling, and they want to license our fragrances for their product line. They're offering substantial money." I stared at the name. Ashworth. It had never occurred to me that Graham's family company was in the luxury goods business, because he'd never told me anything real about himself. I'd known he worked in the family business, but he'd been so vague that I'd never connected the dots. "They've been emailing for weeks," Orlando continued, very persistent. "Their brand is dying, Lotus. They need us more than we need them." I looked at the proposal, at the desperate tone of the emails from Graham's father, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just this hollow emptiness. "You handle it," I told Orlando. "I don't want any contact with them. You negotiate everything. They don't need to know I'm the creative director. Just keep me anonymous." Orlando nodded. He knew. He'd been there through all of it, and he understood without me having to explain. For months, Orlando went back and forth with Ashworth and Company. Graham's father was practically begging for the partnership. Their luxury brand, once prestigious, had become irrelevant. They were losing market share. Their products felt outdated, and they desperately needed something innovative to save them. Meanwhile, Noir Essence was becoming one of the most sought-after fragrance brands in the world. We were the golden ticket they needed. But Orlando played it cool, dragging out negotiations, making them work for it. He never mentioned me. All correspondence referred to the creative director in vague terms. They had no idea who I was. During this time, something shifted between Orlando and me. We'd always had this professional chemistry, but it started becoming something more. One night, after closing a massive deal with a department store chain, we were celebrating in the office with champagne. We were laughing about something stupid, and suddenly he got quiet. He looked at me with this intensity I'd never seen before and said, "I need to tell you something. I've been in love with you for months, maybe longer. But I was waiting until you saw yourself the way I see you. Because you're extraordinary, Lotus. And you needed to know that before I could tell you how I felt." I didn't know what to say. This man had supported me through my worst heartbreak, had believed in my company when it was just a dream, had never once made me feel small or hidden or less than. He'd been there, steady and constant, never asking for anything, just being exactly what I needed. "I was waiting for you to be ready," he continued. "But I can't wait anymore. I'm in love with you, and I needed you to know." That night changed everything. We started dating officially, and it was nothing like what I'd had with Graham. Orlando introduced me to his family within weeks. He posted pictures of us together on social media without hesitation. He brought me to business dinners and held my hand across the table, and never once made me feel like I was anything other than someone he was proud to be with. 3 months into our relationship, he did something that made me cry. He flew to my parents' house in Virginia, unannounced, and asked my father for his blessing to marry me. My father called me, emotional, and told me that Orlando had spent 2 hours talking with him about his intentions, about how much he loved me, about his plans for our future. When Orlando proposed a week later, it wasn't some grand public spectacle. It was just us, in my lab, surrounded by fragrance oils and testing strips. He said, "This is where you're most yourself. This is where I fell in love with you. So this is where I want to ask you to marry me." I said yes before he even finished the question. A month after the engagement, I found out I was pregnant. I was terrified. We'd only been together for 4 months. But when I told Orlando, he picked me up and spun me around like I'd just given him the greatest gift in the world. He immediately started talking about nursery colors and baby names, and how his mother was going to spoil this child rotten. There was no hesitation, no fear, no "this is bad timing," just pure, uncomplicated joy. And that's when I knew. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Then, 7 months into my pregnancy, an envelope arrived at my apartment, heavy ivory cardstock, gold embossing, expensive. An invitation to Graham and Philippa's engagement party at the Ashworth family estate. There was a handwritten note inside in Graham's slanted writing. "Lotus, I hope you're doing well. I'd love for you to come celebrate with us. No hard feelings, I hope?" I read it 3 times, trying to understand his angle. Orlando read it over my shoulder and immediately recognized the address. "This is them," he said quietly. "This is the Ashworth estate, the same family that's been begging us for the partnership." I looked up at him, and we both realized the same thing at once. Graham had no idea who I'd become. He didn't know about Noir Essence, didn't know about my success, didn't know that his family's survival depended on a partnership with my company. He thought I was still that girl in the tiny apartment, still nursing a broken heart, still someone he could parade around as evidence of his charitable nature. "He wants to humiliate you," Orlando said flatly. "He wants his new fiancée and all his society friends to see his ex-girlfriend and feel superior, like he upgraded." I should have thrown the invitation away. I should have ignored it completely. But something in me wanted to go. Not for Graham, but for myself. I wanted to walk into that world he'd hidden me from and show him exactly what he'd lost. Not because I still cared about him, but because I needed to close that chapter with my head held high. "I want to go," I told Orlando. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then we'll go," he said. "But we're doing this my way." Orlando planned everything with the precision of a military operation. He arranged for a vintage Rolls-Royce Phantom, midnight blue with cream leather interior. He had a custom gown made for me by an African designer I'd admired for years, a flowing emerald silk that showcased my pregnancy beautifully. The night before the party, he held my face in his hands and said, Let him think he won. Let him parade you around as his act of charity. And then, when he's feeling most superior, we'll show him the truth. We'll show him exactly who you are and what he cost his family. The day of the party, I was surprisingly calm. I'd spent 2 years being hidden, being made to feel less than, being treated like something shameful. But that woman was gone. The woman who stepped out of that Rolls-Royce, 7 months pregnant in an emerald gown with her billionaire fiancé at her side, was someone entirely different. The Ashworth estate was exactly what I'd imagined. Sprawling gardens, circular driveway, old money dripping from every stone. Guests milled around with champagne glasses, all dressed in that specific way wealthy people dress when they're trying to look casual but actually spent thousands on their outfits. When I stepped out of the car, Orlando's hand on my back, conversations literally stopped. I could feel every eye turned toward us. I held my head high, one hand resting on my belly, and walked toward the entrance like I owned the place. And in a way, I did. Because these people, Graham's family, needed me. They just didn't know it yet. Graham was standing near the entrance, and the moment he saw me, his entire expression changed. Shock, confusion, then this forced politeness that barely masked his discomfort. He approached quickly, smile tight. "Lotus, you came. I'm so glad." His eyes darted to Orlando, to my pregnant belly, back to my face. He was trying to calculate, trying to understand. "And you brought someone." How nice. The dismissiveness in his tone was intentional. Like Orlando was some random date I'd scraped together to save face. Orlando extended his hand, his expression perfectly polite and completely cold. "Orlando Mercier, Lotus's fiancé." He emphasized the word fiancé, and I saw Graham flinch slightly. We moved into the ballroom, and Graham stayed close, clearly uncomfortable but trying to maintain control. After a few minutes, he pulled me aside, his voice low. "I'm glad you moved on, Lotus. Really. But this is Philippa's night. I'd appreciate if you didn't make it about you." The audacity of it almost made me laugh. He'd invited me specifically to humiliate me, and now he was acting like I was the one causing problems. Before I could respond, a voice called out from across the room. "Mr. Mercier! Orlando Mercier!" Graham's father was pushing through the crowd, hand extended, face lit up with recognition. "I can't believe you're here. We've been trying to schedule a meeting with you for months." He shook Orlando's hand enthusiastically, completely ignoring Graham and me. "Your team has been incredibly thorough with the partnership proposal. We're very excited about the possibility of working with Noir Essence." Orlando smiled politely. "Yes, it's been an interesting negotiation." Graham's father finally noticed me standing there, looked at Orlando's hand resting on my back, and his expression shifted to confusion. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize you'd be bringing someone." "Are you?" Orlando's smile widened slightly. "This is my fiancée, Lotus. Perhaps you recognize her?" The confusion deepened. "I don't think we've met." "Have we?" Orlando let the pause hang for just a moment. "Actually, you've been corresponding with her for months. Lotus is the creative director of Noir Essence. She's the perfumer you've been so eager to partner with." I watched Graham's father's face change in real time. Shock, realization, horror, then immediate panic. His eyes darted to me, really seeing me for the first time. You're the creative director? You're the one who created the fragrances?" I nodded slowly. "That's me." Graham, who'd been standing there in stunned silence, finally found his voice. "Wait, what? You're in perfume? You never told me you were successful." The words came out accusatory, like I'd somehow deceived him. I looked at him, this man who'd hidden me for 2 years, and I felt nothing but pity. "You never asked what I did, Graham. You never asked about my dreams or my work or my life. You just assumed I was nobody. That was easier for you." Graham's father was panicking now, looking between me and his son. "Graham, you know her? How do you know her?" Graham's face had gone pale. We used to date, before Philippa." The words hung in the air. Orlando, who'd been silent through this exchange, finally spoke. His voice was quiet but cut through the room like ice. "Before Philippa. When you kept her secret for 2 years. When you hid her from your family and friends. When you made her feel like she wasn't good enough for your world." He paused, letting it sink in. "The same woman your family's company has been desperately trying to partner with. The same woman whose fragrances could save your failing brand." Interesting. Graham's father looked like he might be sick. His mother had joined the group now, drawn by the commotion, and she was staring at me with growing horror as she realized what was happening. Graham's mother, who'd been quoted calling Philippa suitable, was suddenly looking at me like I held her family's fate in my hands. Which I suppose I did. "Ms. Lotus," Graham's father started, his voice shaking slightly. "I had no idea. If I'd known Graham had. If we'd known you were. Please, can we talk about the partnership? Privately?" Orlando's hand tightened slightly on my back. I could feel his silent question, letting me decide how to handle this. I looked around at all of them. Graham, who'd treated me like a shameful secret. His parents, who'd never deemed me suitable. The entire room of society people who'd been about to witness Graham's charity toward his pathetic ex. And I smiled. "Actually," I said quietly, "about that partnership. We've decided to pass." The silence was deafening. Graham's father went white. "Pass? But we've been negotiating for months. We need this partnership. Our brand is struggling. We need the innovation. You need us," Orlando finished calmly. "Yes, and that's exactly why we're declining. You see, character matters in business relationships. Integrity matters. And a family that raised someone who could treat another human being the way your son treated Lotus? That's not a family we want to do business with." Graham's mother gasped. His father started sputtering protests. Graham himself looked like he'd been punched. Philippa, who'd been watching this entire scene unfold from across the room, marched over. "What is going on? Graham, who is this woman?" Graham couldn't even answer. He just stood there, watching his entire life collapse, watching his family's business opportunity walk away, watching his past and his future collide in the worst possible way. Orlando took my hand. "We're leaving now." "Congratulations on your engagement." His tone made it clear he meant the opposite. As we walked toward the exit, I heard Graham's father desperately calling after us, his mother begging us to reconsider, Graham trying to explain to a furious Philippa who I was and why this was happening. The beautiful thing was, I didn't need to turn around. I didn't need to see their faces or hear their excuses. I just kept walking, Orlando's hand in mine, toward that Rolls-Royce and the life we'd built together. 3 months later, Orlando and I got married in an intimate ceremony in Haiti, surrounded by both our families. It was small, meaningful, perfect. A month after that, I gave birth to our daughter. We named her Soleil, which means sun, because she brought light into every corner of our lives. Ashworth and Company reached out 4 more times, each message more desperate than the last. Orlando rejected every one without consulting me. "Some bridges should stay burned," he said simply. I heard through industry contacts that Graham and Philippa's engagement lasted about 6 weeks after that party. Apparently, she'd had a lot of questions about his past, and he'd had very few good answers. His family's company ended up filing for bankruptcy 8 months later. They couldn't find another partnership that would save them, and their brand finally died after 3 generations. Part of me felt bad about that, but only a very small part, because here's what I learned. Graham didn't hide me because I wasn't worthy. He hid me because deep down, he knew I'd outshine him. He knew I was building something real while he was coasting on his family name. He knew I had more substance in my little finger than he had in his entire privileged existence. And he was terrified that if his world saw me, really saw me, they'd realize it too. So he kept me hidden, hoping I'd stay small, hoping I'd never realize my own power. But I did realize it. And when I walked into that party, pregnant and powerful and partnered with a man who was proud to stand beside me, I wasn't there to prove anything to Graham. I was there to prove something to myself, that I was never the problem, that being hidden wasn't about my worth, it was about his fear. And the moment I understood that, I was free. The best revenge isn't showing up and making a scene. It's showing up and being so completely unbothered by someone's opinion of you that they become irrelevant. Graham wanted to humiliate me. Instead, he handed me the opportunity to save his family's legacy, and I walked away. Because some people don't deserve your magic. Some people don't deserve your gifts. And recognizing that isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. I'm married now to a man who celebrates me. I have a daughter who will never question her worth. I have a company that's thriving beyond my wildest dreams. And Graham? Graham is exactly where he deserves to be. Not because I destroyed him, but because he destroyed himself. And that's the most poetic justice of all. And that's how my ex's attempt to humiliate me became his own downfall. If you love this story of karma and business revenge, smash that like button, subscribe for more incredible true stories, and drop a comment. Would you have accepted the partnership or walked away? Would you have even gone to that party? I want to hear what you would have done. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.